Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Cambrian Explosion. We have an awesome guest speaker today. On is here to talk about his project, what he's doing, and it's got a bit of an artistic twist. I'm calling in from a beach somewhere because I still don't want to live in Canada, but we're gonna get On's perspective on on mental health and how that impacts in this episode. But yeah, on. So yeah, tell us how have you been doing? What have you been up to?
Hi guys. It's been a busy year for me, especially considering that oh I I was disabled, right? So it's a big like turnaround in my life also that I've been doing a lot of work. I've been working on my newsletter, working on starting my business and bringing all the newsletter and everything together and adding a podcast to it. So there's a lot going on that front over since the last time I was here with you guys. Um,
It's Elephant in the Mirror, right? Your
the
blog,
newsletter, yeah.
yes, newsletter. How many? Where are you at with that?
So we have about 600 followers, I think now,
Oh, awesome.
and
Nice.
150 subscribers.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah.
So that
Very cool.
150 are paid now.
No, they're not paying. There's only a few who are paying. Only a few are paying.
Okay.
Yeah. But I also am not asking for money, really. It's currently free. I've kept it that way for the time being. So you can get all the content with a free subscription. There's just a few people who are supporting the endeavor, and I'm really grateful to them.
So yeah, you were a guest previously on the show as well on our season 2, episode 7, back in this spring, actually earlier this year. And you were telling us many interesting things about, you had to go through some struggles, health struggles. As you said, happy to hear that you're in a better situation now, and you're kind of like almost like blossoming and doing all these projects. So that sounds exciting.
Thank you. Can that
Yeah.
be like one cringe factor step that I'm
Yeah.
blossoming?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
You're
As
overcoming the cringe. That's
Yeah.
I'm joking. I'm
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
joking.
it's about your
as
business.
So there's the business is like two pronged. There's the aspect that is going to be for me, for profit, is the newsletter, the podcast, and I've been coaching a lot of people with PTSD recently. I help them. I'm not a therapist or a doctor, but I do help them with everything else, from art to building soft skills, things like that. Because a lot of these people are like disabled, right? And they're not doing much, so it helps them to have some kind of structure, and I help them through their journey with their processing and everything. So there's a coaching is part of the business, and so is speaking. I've recently been getting to speak more. um, so that's my business. But the nonprofit, which is their meat and potatoes, is basically to connect artists with people with PTSD, specifically for them to teach people with PTSD how to make art and how to connect with their emotions as they do that. Specifically because with PTSD, the known ways to get better are to connect with other people and to express yourself, right? So there's no better way to do that than in a group, in an art project group, right? So we're trying to set those up. It's not just that. There's like employment help. There's financial education, right? There's like a whole lot of things that we don't want people to just be sitting home depressed and not doing anything at all, because even they feel like garbage. Then they're like, we're not making progress, right? So
Yeah. That sounds like a very interesting project. We should definitely link to that and mention the name as well. But yeah, we'll definitely make sure that we include that in the show notes for people to access, to check out your project and see if they can kind of like subscribe.
yeah, thank
That's
you.
awesome. So you mentioned art. Do you guys ever do like have you guys ever looked at singing as a form of therapy? Like I've seen like cases where people who were stuttering, they had issues with stuttering and stuff like that. They sometimes used singing to overcome that.
Yeah, 100%. So singing is part of the um, what we're going to what I'm looking to include in this whole thing. And it's not just singing, music, stand-up comedy, what's it called? Improv, right?
Improv,
Because
yes,
you
yes,
mentioned
yes, and
stuttering, improv helps with that too. So yeah, there's a bunch of where I'm trying to basically look into all of this stuff, and I want it to be local, right?
mm,
So whatever people are able to, whatever local artists are able to provide, and to people in their locality who have mental health struggles.
true,
Uh,
true. Looking around locally, like might be a little bit more feel a little bit more accessible or achievable to instead of rather than like reaching out across like large distances for people.
Yeah,
If it's in the neighborhood, maybe, or if it's in the same area,
yeah, and we can expand that way also. So you know,
it's scalable. Yeah.
yeah.
What are you planning on doing with this project in 2025 if all goes well?
So in 2025, there's the actualization of this project. Right now it's still in its planning phase. We are, however, looking for funding, like early funding. We have like a plan and everything, but it's hopefully it's going to materialize starting very soon, maybe this year. Um, and next year I intend to be working on that. I'm working with a immigrant and refugee center that provides like employment skills and assistance to like immigrants and refugees. And those guys are helping me set this up. They're I'm sort of affiliated with them right now. Um, and we plan to sort of bring all of these pieces together that we're laying out right now. Maybe by next year we'll have everything up and running.
How
Sorry,
are
go
you
ahead.
planning to source the artists? And I ask because some artists might be listening. How do
Hmm.
they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so artists can get in touch with me in any capacity. We will be starting this project from Toronto. So what I'm hoping is that we'll be local artists in Toronto, and then as we expand, then we can include people from other places as well, right? But for sure, if there are artists that are interested in participating in this and teaching people with PTSD, maybe they have PTSD themselves, right? And they have like super saiyan insight into all of this when they have lived experience. So like I'm hoping that, yeah, I hope I do encourage artists to reach out to us, because we're definitely looking for people in all the localities in GTA.
Yeah,
Yeah, they say the best way to learn is to teach, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
people who teach something also understand it better themselves after that.
Sorry, I was going to say you mentioned immigrants, and since we do talk a lot about immigrants in the podcast, I'm just wondering what type of issues do immigrants face in Canada versus back home
Hmm.
when they do come here? Because and what are you hoping to help them with this project?
Yeah. So w- for one thing, the culture back home and over here is very different. It's very um, you know tribal back home and very individual over here. Um,
Mm,
so the dynamics that play out in our homes are very different. There are relationships at play over back home that are not necessarily even encouraged over here, right? Like it's encouraged for you to separate from your parents, go away, start your own thing. Whereas back home, like you're respected if you're, following your dad into everything he does.
Mm,
So, and that affects PTSD and trauma particularly because these people who have like problems at home with their family members in Pakistan are stuck with them. Whereas over here, you have a lot more room to sort of like be independent of all of that,
mm,
to find support. Back home, there's no support. Most of the people are who like require therapy ask their family members for that money, right?
mm.
mm,
Over here, it's free.
I
Um,
mean, and yet surprisingly, I've seen a lot of people here as well who are, first or second generation kids or teenagers or young adults. They come into forums and they ask for help about like they don't even know how to act. They're not even aware or they don't know how to access these support networks. They're stuck in families where they are being mistreated in some ways, or the parents are
It's
controlling
not
them,
the
or
norm. It's not the norm for them
yeah.
to
Yeah,
go
yeah,
out of their shell and
yeah,
ask for that help, because I think back
yeah,
home it's very, very brushed off, versus
yeah,
yeah.
over here you're doing a lot to just tell somebody, oh, I
Mm,
need the
yeah.
support.
Back home, like, uh, personally, I went to a British school, right? And we were pretty much like Westerners already before we came here.
mhm.
We were the burger log, right?
mm,
Um, but once
But a
the
lot of people, I think what you're saying is that a lot of people who come here to Western countries, they might not come from such privileged backgrounds, socioeconomic, and they might grow up with more conservative families and stricter upbringing, right?
yeah,
So,
exactly.
they wouldn't know, or they wouldn't be in that mindset,
Yeah,
even if they
and
live in the West.
like both of my therapists over here have been white people, and it would be silly to say that there were no cultural bridges that we had to build
Mm,
in order to like understand each other.
mm,
And that's again like saying, for somebody who has almost grown up in Western culture back home,
mm,
for people who do not have, maybe they have a language problem, maybe they have like they feel like their religion does not coincide very well with the latest healthcare interventions and things like that, right?
mm,
So I feel like with those people, in fact, the reason why I'm doing all of this, and I'm working with an immigration and refugee center, is because I do want this project to be a place where we can give these immigrants and refugees a chance to sort of uh, be in a incubator where they can sort of like exercise their new exposure, right? They learn these new
mm,
things, they find out about new stuff, but we want them to have a place where they can exercise it all with people who they trust and already knows, are familiar with them and their
mm,
culture, right? So this is for sure going to be for immigrants and refugees, especially.
One of the things I'll mention is, we've talked about this in our one of our previous podcasts, but when you come to Canada and you have all these expectations of a better life, so for example, I'll say, Lahore right now has a lot of fog and smog that they've canceled schools and stuff like that. So if you're coming with the mindset of, oh, Canada is going to be this refresher for you in terms of a lot of things like your career, housing, stuff like that, people do get very surprised when they come here, because you're very independent here. You don't have a family to support you,
mm,
or multiple people can come in and help you. So I think, uh, I don't know on like what your opinion is, but I feel like the mental health challenges worsen a little bit when you
Hmm.
come here, because you're sort of having to adapt to all of these things that Trudeau is throwing at immigrants,
Yeah.
every week almost. So uh,
Oh, we want lots of immigrants. Oh, wait, we don't want that many immigrants. Oh,
Yeah.
India is bad. Oh, India is actually not that bad. But, all sorts of like seaside.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely for me it was quite. I honestly expected it because I'm a doctor back home, I already knew that they're very stingy with giving us spots over here. So I didn't sit the exam for Canada. So yeah, 100%. Like we have this whole like we have these rose tinted glasses on when we come here, and then we find out that the reality is very different. But one thing I would like to say is that when uh when when we're transplanting a tree from one place to another, right? We inevitably destroy some roots in
Mm,
order to
Mhm.
bring it here.
mm,
And once you do bring it here, it does require more nutrition. It does require special treatment for some time until it
mm.
can lay down new roots, right? And
Right.
people are exactly like that, is that when we get uprooted from our it's not is it better here or worse there, it's just
Mm,
that was what it was normal for you, right?
mm,
And it
Mhm.
no longer is, and that discomfort is big enough. Like, you don't even have to leave the
mm.
country for that to, like, for something like that to affect you, right?
And you're in a new ecosystem. You're surrounded by foreign roots that you don't know and that don't interact with you, right?
Yeah, yeah. And new pathogens and things to
Yeah.
deal with that you never had to deal with back home.
That's a great analogy. I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking like I should write a song using
I'll,
like that analogy.
I'm
That's a
going to make a
great
note of that.
analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or how you didn't get food poisoning now that you're in Canada.
Oh yeah,
Or that
yeah.
you did. Would that be different? Because it's so different here. The food's too good here. I think
I was
Yao would
I was
disagree.
chronically sick in Pakistan.
Yeah. 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 There's also the air quality, right? Like it's like in Canada, you can see blue skies, clear air. Air quality is one of the best in the world, especially in Ontario. Back in where we came from, South Asia, air pollution and particulates and car exhaust fumes, and you're constantly in that. Like it's like a soup. Like you can feel it. It's so thick. The skies are gray because it's all so polluted. It's crazy to think about the
Um,
difference.
I'd love to hear about a little more on the arts piece of it as well. So, are you familiar with the Theater of the Oppressed?
No,
No,
that sounds
you should
awesome.
you should check it out. It's about bringing conversations that are difficult um, to the audience. So typically, it's there'll be an actor who will act out a scenario which is the wrong way for things to happen, and then the audience is asked to participate and come up with ideas on how that could have been handled differently just by using better language and better actions and better behavior so that um, and and the idea is that with the audience participation you just don't watch a spectacle but you actually experience what oppression is and
Hmm.
how to tackle it. And I think and I share this with you because what you're doing is very much similar in thought process as theater of the oppressed.
Yeah, 100%. Like I would love to have like some kind of theater skills and things like that. Thank you for the idea, even. But um, for 100% sure, like, learning these things is it's so crucial. I'm almost surprised all the time that people are able to, like, we've been able to get through life without knowing how our mind is affected by simple, like, communication.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I constantly find out things which I didn't know, and I'm like surprised. I never knew about this or thought about this before, and now that I know it, it's like it makes me completely change my perspective. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
I mean, one of the things I'll just say, like earlier in this conversation, on you were like, "Oh, I'm a doctor in Pakistan," and I'm just sort of, I hate that people have to say that because you've been through that education and training, and I
Mm,
don't think it's fair that you have to, obviously we have new rules and stuff here, but to go through your
mm,
entire medical education again, rather than
mm.
just something to update you on, I feel like that also contributes to a lot of that, right? Like I feel like the communication here should be when you come
Yeah,
to Canada, do a course, try to get upgraded, and then Canada needs doctors. So
Oh, it's a huge problem in Canada, especially because not only but from South Asian or other immigrants, but also from the U.S. Canadian clinics are trying to bring in doctors who want to work here. They want to actually they want to literally give them a job, you know. But the bureaucracy is so incredibly long-winded and twisty that apparently this American doctor it has been stuck for 2 or more years in the process of applying. And they won't give her the clearance to practice medicine in Canada. It's crazy.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just I think doctors. It's like going back to some of our conversations early this
Mhm.
year.
Mhm.
Even just your Canadian citizenship. Like I got my citizenship
Mhm.
many years ago, over 5 years ago, probably 8 years now. And I remember that my mom found out that there was actually only one person that was processing everything. So it took us almost 2 years after spending 4 years in Canada to actually get
Mhm.
our citizenship. So I think the resources, to a degree, once you come here, you realize, I do have to do a lot of paperwork. I have to pay a lot of taxes. I have to
Mhm.
do a lot to get them to see me and that I have a voice and that they need to care about my struggle too, right? You don't
Mhm.
just immigrate a bunch of people to your country and then hope that they figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Definitely not perfect system. But yeah, uh, totally agree. Totally agree. Like yesterday, I went. I go on a Friday night or evening. I Once a year I go for my flu shot, right? So yesterday I tried to get my flu shot, and they tell me that, oh, do you have a time slot reservation? I'm like, no, I never needed a time slot booking before. And they're like, oh, we can't do it without a reservation, blah blah blah. Where apparently they're so swamped with giving people flu shots that they literally can't give it to you if you're walking. It's crazy.
Yeah, they're understaffed. They're
Yeah.
severely understaffed.
Severely understaffed.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's something you could easily do on. Like you would be ready
Yeah,
to go and help them with this
yeah.
problem.
Oh, and I wanted to ask you one more thing about, in the West, you hear a lot about the loneliness epidemic, right? Like,
mhm.
I'm sure you must have thought about this as well, right? Like, what do you think is happening here? Like, what's with all this loneliness stuff?
So I have theories and facts, and I think the facts are that um, we are again, it's the individualistic culture that
Mm.
that does this, and it's also that people have to like move great distances for work and things like that in this country at least. If you move from Toronto to Oakville, you don't see those relatives again for like until Eid, right?
Yeah.
Mm,
So it's stuff like that. And on top of that, like obviously as immigrants, we do not have again like all those roots that we laid down back home, all those people that we knew, all those connections that we knew. Like I have friends even now whose grandfathers were my grandfather's friends back home, right?
mm,
And we obviously don't have that kind of connections over here,
mm.
because it's a new place and everything.
It's
So
unimaginable to have that deep, connections. Yeah.
yeah, and what I feel like is necessary, and what we are doing with my project is that again, like I said, the two important things for recovering from PTSD are expression um and being with other people,
Being
right?
in a community. Yeah.
Being in a community, having that family
Mm,
that a lot of people didn't even have growing up, right? It's so
mm,
like family is something that's new to them. They don't even know how to appropriately communicate with people, and they may seem like perfectly fine. You'll see them at work; they'll do everything perfectly. They'll be charming. They'll be happy, but that's it, right? That
right.
because that's all they learned. And then they go home and they
Mm,
don't know how to be at home. They don't know how to be alone. They
mm,
so yeah, it's definite there definitely is a loneliness epidemic. I think it's made worse by all the right-wing media going around. That's just basically isolating men especially. And
Mm.
kind of like radicalizing them. That's a real
You mean
thing.
like the Andrew Tate kind of thing? Men have to be manly, masculine, alpha. They have to put women in their place, that kind of thing?
Yeah, but that's the thing where I'm like, is it manly to put women in their place? Like, come fight
Mm.
me, right?
Hmm.
Or is that what happened with the US election?
Well, it's
Yeah.
if you look at it like at the very basic level, it was the choice between electing a man and electing a woman. And Americans, even by some margin, like it's not that huge of a margin, maybe about 1 million, 2 million votes, they went for the guy again.
Yeah, but
I, I
yeah,
would
sorry,
disagree
sorry, go
with you
ahead.
on that. I would severely disagree with you.
Yeah,
I think
Trump won by like a landslide.
no, it's not also the landslide factor. I think more importantly, people voted, hey, status quo economy is really bad, and they
Mhm,
voted against the economy, not
mhm,
against social policies. The
mhm,
social policies are almost always a secondary factor when the economy is going downhill. And I don't trust US government numbers. The
mhm,
economy is way worse, or at least has been way worse this year than the US government numbers have shown. Um,
mhm,
for example, the job creation is self-reported by companies. So, a lot of companies have been over-reporting job creation, and still the job numbers look bad, and they have had to go
mhm,
back and revise those job numbers for the summer. It's not people voting against a woman, in my opinion. I think
mhm.
most Americans do not care about that, and most Americans, not all, but most Americans are, we don't care as long as somebody helps with our pocket, first and foremost.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
I mean,
it's
I was being reductionist, but yeah, you're right. It's very complex, lot to discuss over there. We could probably go on for 2 hours, three
yeah,
hours
and
to
Yeah.
discuss
I'll
that.
just say one last thing on that. It's the economy is so bad that they picked a felon over the woman.
I
So,
There you go.
Yeah,
I
that
think
that
I think I think it's also worth noting that they had a choice between a genocider and a rapist.
yeah.
I
yes.
don't. There's no. That's a no-win scenario if there ever
Yeah,
was
they,
one.
Yes.
yeah, two bad
So yeah.
choices basically.
Yeah, it would
Yeah.
have been funny if the third party one was this like NDP or something.
No, it's the Green Party. It's
Sorry, the
Jill
Green Party.
Stein.
Yes, yes, you're
Yeah,
right.
Jill
Just
Stein.
trying to remember what the
Jill
party.
Stein.
Yes.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. But yeah, I think we're kind of as we come to the close of this year, we there's lots to look back on. But I think let's go out on a probably positive note, and we'll we'll kind of say that uh, with On and people like you, I think, who are trying to like create communities, I think that's probably the best way
Mm.
to go forward, right? Like to bring people together.
Yeah. 100%. I feel like that's just the essence of life is being with other people.
Mm,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And not
Yeah.
like Tom Hanks in Castaway.
No.
But
That's
Mavish,
quite
Wilson.
a
that's for your
study in
Yeah.
loneliness.
Is that's where I've ended up basically?
that's for your virtual background. Yeah.
Wilson is somewhere there behind
Mm,
me,
Yes.
choking
I
out
miss
on top of
Wilson.
that tree.
okay.
Uh, well, so we talked a lot about topics that we had discussed throughout this year. So I think it's a good way to wrap up the year and hopefully continue these discussions in future podcasts. And we're going to be having some amazing guest speakers and a lot of fun topics. So if you all want to specifically want to hear things about immigration and mental health or other topics that you think we would bring a lot to and hopefully not increase our cringe factors, please let us know in the comments and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell, especially on's newsletter, so you can stay in touch with when he launches his nonprofit. And yeah, we will see you in 2025 when Trump takes over.
Great.
You,
Looking forward to
yeah.
it.